As GLP-1 medications become increasingly common in metabolic and weight management care today, health coaches are on the front lines of a rapidly changing landscape. Beyond understanding the basics of GLP-1s, coaches now need a clear, holistic framework to support their clients through the physical, emotional, and behavioral shifts that accompany GLP-1 use. Clients now more than ever need support with their relationship to food, movement, body image, and self-care when using these medications. Hello and welcome. I am Lisa Kelly, President of the Workplace Wellness Center of Excellence, a provider of 4 workplace wellness certification programs, and an executive wellness coach, a nutritionist, and a whole bunch of other certifications, which we won't get into today. And I am joined today by the lovely Lorene Sauro, an award-winning functional nutritionist and owner of the Functional Nutrition Training Hub and the Digester's Dilemma. So welcome, Lorene.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah. So in our discussion today, we're going to explore what effective coaching looks like in the GLP-1 era, and how a holistic model that integrates nutrition, physical activity, maybe, of course, sleep, stress management, and psychological support can really help clients foster optimal, sustainable health and well-being. And I we'll just have an exchange back and forth about your courses, I'm sure. But as you know, I've signed up for several of your programs, and I was really excited that you brought in a discussion around the GLP-1, which we're going to bring up some slides from that presentation momentarily. And I'd like for us to start our conversation perhaps with you sharing with our viewers a little bit about your background maybe, and your knowledge and intersection and maybe alignment, however that looks, with GLP-1s, and really why this discussion matters more than ever in an increasingly complex coaching landscape. So I'll let you proceed as you'd like to on that one.
Well, my background is obviously functional nutrition, and I got involved with wellness because of my own health issues with endometriosis
Oh,
and early osteoarthritis. But it put me in the hormone world. Okay. So as soon as you get into hormone world, you start to learn about the complexities of it. My program, Functional Hormone Balance, that I created for my colleagues is based on trying to teach the connections between one hormone with another, because this is the picture that most people don't get. So when GLP-1s came out, and it's a hormone, not the drug. The drug's not a hormone. We'll get to that in a minute. But the GLP-1 that we make is a hormone. My first question was, how do they interact with the other hormones? Because that's part of the story, right? And then, of course, I started my other area of expertise, of course, is the gut.
yeah.
And finding out that the GLP-1 hormone that we make is also, we only make it sufficiently if we have good gut health.
Mm.
I had to look at it from that aspect as well. So that's what brought me into this, because it's kind of fascinating that once again we're having people take drugs that are going to mimic actions that we do naturally.
Yeah.
And there's some caveats. There's some big caveats that we need to consider in order to
Yeah.
help people understand what's going on with their body.
Absolutely. And I may or may not, but did you have some health coaches? Because I know you're very closely, especially here in Canada, where I've trained. You're very closely connected with a lot of graduates from different programs here in Canada. Did you have a number of health coaches reach out to you saying, Lorene, how can we support our clients around GLP-1 use? And do you have anything with respect to that? Yes, no?
Not a single one.
Interesting. Oh, okay.
That's how new, if you want to look at it that way, that's how
Okay.
new the concept of what the drug is doing and the effects of what the drug is doing is, because it just hasn't permeated. And it's almost like, because as a health coach, that basically we're trying to stay away from drugs.
Yes,
So
of
when
course.
a new drug comes out like that, most of us just go,
Yeah.
right? And unfortunately, because this one is so popular and because so many people are doing it for weight loss. I wrote about this on my Substack blog that this was the
Mm,
the cash cow that the pharmaceuticals have been looking for eons,
yes,
right?
it is.
I just read an article today that said that they're now looking at it for addiction overall because they noted that people who are on the drug for weight loss are also less prone to developing other addictions.
Yes, I've read that also. Yeah. So okay. So I know that you have a few slides maybe that really might help set the context for what we're going to talk about today. And if you'd like, I'll let you share your screen there, and you can bring those slides up and speak to them.
Okay, here we go. So what I wanted to show you is just the basics about what the hormone is and where it comes from, and then we'll touch briefly on the medication. We will go into more detail about the medication later and its
Right.
significance, but I thought this might be helpful for you just to place it.
Mm-hmm.
So GLP-1 is also known as glucagon-like peptide 1, and it's a hormone and signaling peptide.
Mm.
And it helps regulate blood sugar, insulin, release, appetite, digestive timing, and communication between the gut and the brain. Now, when you just look at that list alone,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because remember, these all have other hormones involved, like, appetite has leptin and ghrelin, and blood sugar has, insulin has is a hormone. And one of the other things it does is suppress glucagon, which is another hormone.
Mm.
So you can see that it's kind of important, even though it's an unknown. Prior to this, we didn't really know much about it. So it is a gut-derived signaling peptide, and it's released after eating.
Mm.
So if you don't eat, it doesn't do anything.
Okay.
And what it's trying to do is coordinate the body's metabolic response to food. So when you have people who are not having a good response to food, either they eat too much or their blood sugar spikes up too high when it really shouldn't, or many other things, this could be part of the reason they don't have enough GLP-1 hormone. It's known as an incretin hormone, and it's released after eating. What it does is amplify the insulin release. And the two main incretins, because there's two of them, and this comes into the drug situation, are GLP-1, which is glucagon-like peptide 1, and then GIP, which is glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. And the reason this is important is because one of the drugs, Mounjaro, is a combination of these two, whereas Ozempic and Wegovy are just GLP-1.
And they have them now coming out with the tripeptide or trifactor, I guess, as well, or
Yeah,
multiples.
they're going to keep trying to make it because I don't. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves
Yeah.
here, but
Okay.
um, it's about the effectiveness for
Right.
weight loss now. So they're trying
Right.
to make it more effective because before it was just a blood sugar
Right. Right.
situation.
Yeah.
And they're released from the intestine when the nutrients enter the gut. So as soon as you eat, if you drink glucose orally, you'll release more insulin than if the same glucose is given intravenously.
Hmm.
So that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is called the incretin effect. And
Okay.
it shows that the gut communicates with the pancreas to coordinate metabolism. And when we say GLP-1 drugs are incretin-based therapies, what we mean is they mimic gut hormones that normally enhance insulin after meals.
Right.
GLP-1 is produced mainly in the gut by enteroendocrine L cells, and they're found in the distal ileum and the colon. So it's not going to kick in until the food is at least moved past most of the small intestine.
Okay.
The L cells are nutrient sensors. They respond to what arrives in the distal small intestine and colon. And this reinforces that GLP-1s depend on digestion reaching the lower gut, which
Mm.
means eventually they have to get to the colon and the lower part of the small intestine and the colon. The L cells release GLP-1 after eating in response to signals generated during digestion. And this makes GLP-1 a gut-derived hormone rather than one produced by the pancreas.
So why might all this be important now for a health coach or even someone on GLP? What's this slide maybe saying in summary for us?
In other words, what we tend to do, right? We tend to work on digestion,
Mm-hmm.
right? First and foremost,
Yeah.
a lot. So this falls right into our backyard. And a lot of us also do gut work.
Mm.
Well, and again, in our backyard. And so what this means is, and we will get into this shortly,
Okay.
as to what people should be looking at when they're working with a client before to really understand what they could be doing to themselves if they're on the drug or if they even needed it in the first place. Okay,
Right.
so that because of this, we can see where people could go astray in not having enough GLP-1
Right.
for their body, right?
Right. So if we had all our ducks in a row nutritionally and gut health wise, then we may, not even need to have a medication to take its place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you want to sum up the story is that thanks to our gut, we had a natural mechanism to regulate our appetite beyond leptin and ghrelin.
Hmm.
And GLP-1s do connect with leptin and ghrelin just for the
Right.
sake, whatever. And we had the ability to stabilize, not have food spike up our blood sugar. We have and had a sensing mechanism that would prevent us from developing insulin resistance and spiking up our blood sugar
Right.
and controlling our appetite and feeling more satisfied. Like, but there's a mechanism in place and it starts in the gut. So
Yeah.
this is why it's of importance to us because we tend to provide the foods that are good for the gut to our clients, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so it can be triggered by multiple inputs, nutrients, as we have talked about, so the food, which will stimulate the L cells directly. Gut microbes also play a role. And when dietary fibers are fermented, I'm sure everybody knows now about short chain fatty acids that are produced by the microbes, especially butyrate. These are also part of the signaling process. It'll stimulate GLP-1 release and improves insulin sensitivity and neural signals, including the vagal input. So the vagus nerve is a big part of the GLP-1 story.
Hmm.
And what they call gut stretch further influence when and how GLP-1 is released. This, I didn't even know there was such a thing called
Yeah.
gut
No,
stretch.
I didn't either.
So it's a mechanical signal created when the food volume expands the gut,
Mm,
helping triggering neural and hormonal satiety signals such as GLP-1.
right.
Well, we knew these things expanded and contracted, so it's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And then GLP-1 release depends on macronutrients exposure, mechanical stretch, the microbial metabolites like butyrate, and neural feedback. So what the brain is telling it.
Hmm. Hmm. And
Okay.
that's what we talk about the gut brain axis and connection, right?
Exactly.
Which I did it actually on my YouTube, Melody Biblo, a graduate of our programs. We actually did well, I was just laughing with Lorene, a video that I think went somewhat viral for by my standards. So, you can learn more about that and check that out after watching our interview here.
All right. So when GLP-1, as we said, is released in response to meals, it rises within a few minutes of food intake,
Mm.
peaks, and then falls quickly. So it doesn't stick around. And it's designed to be temporary. And the natural GLP-1 has a half-life of about 1 to 2 minutes. It's broken down by an enzyme called DPP4, which is in the intestinal wall lining, and it functions in pulses. All right, so it's just a little bit of GLP-1, a little bit of GLP-1.
So this is what the body makes naturally versus taking
Yes,
on the
yes,
left is a GLP-1 medication.
yes.
Yeah.
And it integrates into feedback cycles.
Okay, so I would like to park here just for a second and let's just break this down because I find this really interesting. And again, I don't want to take away from what you're about to speak to, but what's a key takeaway maybe for, let's just say, health coaches here from this slide or what you're trying to say here and share?
Okay, so by understanding that this is what GLP-1, the hormone, is supposed to do, then we now can understand what the drug does.
Mm,
So the difference between the drug, and that's all the slides I was going to share with you anyway.
yeah,
The difference between,
yeah.
it's short to the point. The difference between the drug and our own GLP-1 is it's not GLP-1. It's not a synthetic GLP-1. It's not anything like that. What it does is it just signals the receptor, GLP-1 receptors. So in order for GLP-1 to do all the things that I just said it did, the GLP-1 hormone locks onto GLP-1 receptors in the pancreas, in the brain, in various parts of the body. And as a result of that, that's how the body knows what to do, gets that signal. But what the GLP-1 drugs do is they stimulate those receptors. And the big difference is they do it constantly. right? So
Right.
they're doing it no matter what.
Yeah.
It's not those little pulses.
Yeah.
It's not 1 to 2 minutes. It's not just triggered by food. It's doing it constantly.
And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I'll just say this much, knowing about all the potential downstream effects from things, especially when we're bringing medications into our bodies, I just can't help but wonder. And I know this is maybe the million-dollar question. What are the, downstream effects and implications when our body is always being, it's only meant to be done in pulses, but now we've got a steady stream of this, right? You know?
Well, the problem is, okay, so this is where the individual of the person comes into the story.
Mm,
So you've got a lot of different people. And if we're strictly talking weight loss,
yeah.
okay, you've got different kinds of people looking at taking these drugs for weight loss. You've got people who are suffering from obesity, right?
Right.
And then you've got people who want to lose 20 pounds. There's nothing about the people, and again, the whole premise of this for weight loss is that the only reason someone would be overweight is that they have been eating too much.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that there are many reasons when people, especially the ones who are carrying 20 pounds or 30 pounds or they don't want or whatever, there are other reasons,
What
like
about, yeah,
thyroid
sorry.
hormones
Yeah.
and
Oh, I know.
poor bowel movements. And like, there's all kinds of reasons why
Well,
you
what
lose.
about PCOS? Does that fit into what we're talking about here in the whole conversation? Or again, is that another rabbit hole we want to be not go down?
Well, they are looking at PCOS treatment as a potential because of the blood sugar issues that go with PCOS, right?
Okay.
So they are looking at that. They haven't really done anything, or nothing's come out yet about it of significance. But the point is that if you are someone who is suffering from obesity and you need to lose a lot of weight, and you more than likely are having that weight, you may have some metabolic reasons for the weight that aren't related to eating, but
Right.
more than likely you are overeating, right?
Right.
So to be having that signal constantly going off, telling you you're satisfied and you're having your appetite depressed, could be okay in the short term. There's some things you need as a coach, if you have a client like this, that you should help them do. But it could be okay in the short term to help them get the weight off, right? For the person who's got like 20 pounds to lose,
Yeah.
if they don't have a short of a GLP-1, say they have a thyroid that's not quite ideal. Mind you, there is a connection between metabolism and
Hmm.
GLP-1.
Hmm.
But let's say their GLP-1 hormone is working well. Well, now you're overstimulating all these receptors.
Right.
You're going to eat far too little.
Hmm.
You're going to lose too much weight, and this is what
Yeah.
we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
And it's really annoying to me. I don't know about you, but you see the people who've gone on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as somebody who lost a lot of weight quickly when I had an illness a while back, I know what happens to the face, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was very fortunate. My face bounced back. But,
Well, you look very good.
oh, thank you very much. But, but what happens is you lose all the subcutaneous fat, you
Yeah.
lose muscles, okay? Like you
Yeah.
want to keep your face looking nice
Especially,
as you go.
is it more impactful when it's lost quickly, and that
Yes.
yeah, it's the rapidity, the rapidness of the weight loss, right? As opposed to losing more gradual and slowly, right? So let's just say a Hollywood star, you want to lose 15, 20 pounds quickly to get on the red carpet for the Oscars or whatever, right? I mean yeah, I mean, again, that could be a whole other podcast topic. But so, all that, and I know you've already touched on it, but what else could you speak to as far as your personal philosophy or biases? Be honest as you feel comfortable with respect to using GLP-1s for weight loss versus solely relying, say, or predominantly relying on nutrition, lifestyle, and behavior changes. Now, I know you've already addressed it in part, but what else can you say to that?
Well, the thing is, as I said, you have to assess who the client is and what they really need, and
Mm,
ask them, like let's not assume that they need GLP-1. Like let's not assume that.
yeah.
I've always had the philosophy that if a person is on the drug, you have to deal with them as they are, right? They're
Hmm.
coming to you in this situation. What
Yeah.
can you do for them?
Meet them where they are. Yeah. Yeah.
We can speak to that. But my personal philosophy is that if they could avoid the drug altogether and work on their gut, not only would they be solving this issue for them if their body is not,
Yeah.
does not have enough GLP-1, but they're also doing something really good for their overall health and preventing
Yeah.
further illnesses down the road. Because
Yeah.
if you have not enough of your own GLP-1, you have a gut microbe problem. If you have a gut microbe problem, that has many, many implications. And this is what we're learning about gut health, right?
Mm.
So I would ideally like people not to, but I can certainly understand, like I said, if somebody is suffering with from obesity and they've tried everything, it's better than getting your stomach stapled
Yeah.
because there's protections we can put in place for the body while they're on the drug.
Right.
But if they are only trying to lose 20 pounds, they need to look at what else is not in balance as well. What other hormones are influenced?
Yeah.
Is estrogen playing a role? Is cortisol playing a role? Of
Right.
course it is. It always is.
Yeah.
And
Or maybe it's a case of just they cut back on their exercise and they're just indulging a little more in alcohol, spirits, or their
exactly.
party treats they go to or whatever. But yeah, absolutely. I guess we'll move on. But I just a couple things that come to mind. When we've got this food, because the food stays in the tummy and the digestive tract for a while, right? And I'm thinking like, that then the putrefaction of food happens, right? And what's that doing for our gut when our gut has food lingering there for days when it's meant to come in and pass through? Like, what are some of the implications there of that even?
Well, I don't think that it sits there for days. I think that
Or well, I
it
mean,
does in
I
the
don't know.
colon. It can in the colon.
But in terms of doesn't the GLP-1 slow down the digestive process and it sits
Yes.
because I've heard like even people who have to go for emergency surgery, sometimes if they've had if they're on these medications, then the food may not go through and process through the digestive system as it normally would, and so there could be that concern of aspirating or whatever if there's still food in the gut a day later, right?
Yeah, so that is one of the downsides of the medications, again, because the person wasn't looked at in the first place to see how good their gut motility already is. There's many
Right.
factors that affect gut motility. And when I say gut, I'm talking the whole GI tract,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Stomach, small intestines,
Yeah.
well, even though the stomach's not technically the gut. But anyway, so there are other reasons for motility problems, which the person may have,
Hmm.
which can play a role in overall many things, right?
Yeah.
And then you're putting in a drug that is going to slow down that process. The reason the drug is effective for blood sugar because it slows down the motility is because it slows down the glucose release into the bloodstream.
Right.
So that's why it's effective for diabetes, right?
Okay.
And it's like I said, you're playing with the chemistry of the body. Therefore, it's really complicated, especially when you're dealing with a hormone, because the minute you're dealing with a hormone, they connect to all the other hormones, and
Yes.
now you're creating a mess.
Bit of a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, exactly. So with respect to, what type of framework or methodology approach do you take when you're training, say, coaches on GLP-1 work? And can you walk us through it? And I know again you've touched on some of this, but like really what's your overall coaching philosophy or framework when it comes to, let's just say, combining GLP-1s with lifestyle and behavior change?
Well, I think the thing that people have to do is think about them being on this medication as a window of opportunity to make changes.
Mm,
Because they're going to have less cravings and their appetite is going to be more controlled, they can do more to think about how they eat, what they eat, when they eat. And if you can also get some lifestyle changes into their movement,
yeah,
stress management, good sleep habits, while they're losing weight, then first of all, they're going to have less problems with the side effects of the drug. And the second thing is that they're going to come off the drug in a much better place. They'll be a different person in terms of habits when they come off the drug.
okay, can I stop you there? So we're hearing like even Oprah admitted in her interviews that when she came off the whatever drug she was on, I don't know if she's ever, maybe it was Ozempic, I'm not sure, but that she put on like 20 pounds within a very short time period. So I guess my question is, we've heard this, and they've actually, many experts have said that for whatever reason, and maybe you could speak to the reasons, our body will regain most of the weight over short or a longer period of time. So I guess a bunch of questions come up when I say this, like, does the drug itself actually do something to alter our ability to, produce GLP-1s on its own down the road, or, or maybe slower metabolism down in some way, shape, or form?
Okay. So again, it all comes down to how much are they eating.
Okay.
If they're eating a reasonable amount of food, it's not going to slow down their metabolism. But what's happening is people are not. They're eating far too little.
Okay. Okay.
Just
So,
like when you went on the restrictive, you remember the years people went on the
uh,
restrictive
cabbage diet or
diets with
whatever.
the,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then they come off, their metabolism is slowed down, and now they eat, and of course they put the weight back on.
Yeah.
That being said, if you are approaching this time frame, again, they'd only do this if they were working with a health coach. They're not going to do this on their own.
Mm.
You're improving, looking at how they were sleeping before, because that would have been part of the problem they had with whatever they're trying to accomplish. So if they were trying to lose weight or their blood sugar was not stable or whatever, sleep would have been a factor. Okay.
Mm.
Stress would have been a factor.
Yeah.
Lack of movement would have been a factor. Or you might only have one of those. You don't have to have all of them.
Yeah.
And then the big one is, what are they doing for their gut?
Right.
How do they feed their gut? And most people do not, even when they're eating a whole food diet, are not really aware of how they should be feeding their gut. Therefore, you can't guarantee you. I've looked at so many gut tests, it's not funny.
Yeah.
And the thing that I've seen over and over again is the shortage of butyrate.
Which again, what is butyrate again?
It's a short chain fatty acid, and the butyrate is a miracle. Okay, so butyrate keeps the gut lining healthy, it lowers inflammatory markers, and of course, one of the things it does is send the signal for the L cells and the GLP-1 to do their thing. Okay,
And how do we
so
make it, or can you take a supplement that optimizes your butyrate? Uh,
there is a supplement.
okay.
There's a really nice one that's magnesium butyrate.
Okay. Or
And
can we just through healthier eating and lifestyle optimize our own butyrate
yes,
production? Yeah.
what you really should be doing is feeding the microbes that make the butyrate.
Okay.
And there's two other short chain fatty acids, propionate and acetate. And if you don't have enough of them, they will affect the amount of how well butyrate does its job.
Okay.
And
Wow.
that's what I see on these gut tests over and
Yeah.
over again. People with health issues, and it's across the board, pick your health issue. The short chain fatty acids are usually always off,
Yeah.
one
And the
or
other,
all.
yeah. And the other thing I was going to say that really, in keeping with the line of questioning we have here, but the other thing that worries me is about when we have limited capacity physically, or we just, the leptin and ghrelin take effect. And again, just for my audience, I always get these mixed up. So leptin versus ghrelin, which can you differentiate the two?
Leptin is the one that tells you you've had enough to eat, and ghrelin is the one that tells you to eat.
Right. And so the GLP-1 has an impact on both of them, right?
Yes, because
So,
it's now saying, no, you're not eating.
yeah, yeah, and you're not hungry. So all that to say, if we don't have the capacity or the desire to eat, right? My worry always is that we're not going to get the proper amount of protein, and we're hearing stories about that anyway, right? Or the other macronutrients. And I know of people who've had stomach stapling, and let's just say they could eat a chocolate bar or a couple chocolate bars, no problem. But the minute they eat anything really high fiber, it fills up their tummy so quickly. So they tend to gravitate to the couple of potato chips moreover versus a home cooked meal that fills them up too quickly, And that always worries me. And I wonder if the same is true with GLP-1s maybe, right?
Well, this is the big issue. And this is why I go back to the person who is 300 pounds eats a lot more than the person who's only 20 pounds overweight,
Mhm.
right? And therefore, them eating less could put them into a normal range of eating. So they're eating far less than they were eating to maintain 300 pounds,
Mm.
but they're eating far less. So they're no longer going to be maintaining that 300 pounds because they're eating far less, but it's still a reasonable amount of food. The person who has 20 pounds to lose or 30 pounds to lose or 40 pounds or whatever, if they weren't eating a lot in the first place, what do you think's going to happen to them? They're going to eat even less.
Yeah.
And they're going to starve their microbes, which is one of the biggest downsides to the
Yeah.
drugs. And they're not going to be, having the balance and making the short chain fatty acids and all the things that they
Yeah.
need to do. So it's very critical to look at who the person is who's taking the drug. You
Right.
can't make any assumptions about what's going to affect them or not affect them until you kind of try and understand who they were before they started taking the drug.
Okay.
Were they a person who overate? Were they a person who underate? I've worked with these women. I worked with women with hormone issues
Mm-hmm.
for many years, and they ate like birds.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm like, you live on that? Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
coming home and having dinner, which was a few crackers. Like,
Yeah.
who does that? But
Yeah.
they didn't know what else to do. We're so brainwashed that
Yeah.
weight loss means less eating,
Yeah.
right?
Well, even coming back to the 300-pound person, you said that, they still may be getting adequate amounts of food, volume of food. But again, I wonder the quality, right? Are they getting foods that have got, they're covering all the macro and micronutrient basis, right?
Well, that's where
And
we come in.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's what we can do for them. That's how we can help them. The
yeah,
more they eat in a balanced way, including in a way that supports the gut and it
yeah,
supports other aspects, and as well, the more they can lower their stress and get better sleep and all that stuff, their body will function better when they come off the drug. And the problem with the statistics we have for people who come off the drugs is they
mm,
didn't do anything different.
right.
They just took the
Yeah,
drug. So
yeah,
whatever imbalances were in place before,
hmm.
that it caused the weight to be there or the blood sugar to be
They're still
inflamed,
going to be there,
it's
of
still
course.
there. You
Yeah,
didn't do anything.
yeah,
So that's what we have to sort of communicate to clients is this
hmm,
is what they're doing.
yeah,
And instead of, and again, in my perfect world, they wouldn't be on a drug, but
yeah,
instead of necessarily discouraging them, because we can't do that in scope
yeah,
anyway,
right.
but instead of doing that, if we can explain to them, look, whatever allowed you to be as you are before you started taking the drug is still in place, even though you took the drug. You're not fixing that. You are mechanically making your body not want to eat. And
Yeah,
by doing that, you are losing weight. But what you're doing is you're going to be creating the chickens haven't come home yet,
yeah.
okay?
And I think this is why the within our field of scope as a coach, a nutritionist or health coach, whatever that, and maybe it might be that they need professional help beyond our scope of practice, right, with a therapist. But there's sometimes we eat for emotional, a lot of times we eat for emotional reasons, and there's, trauma and what have you, and on it goes, right? So it's really about getting to the root issue because intuitively, I think most people will know, yeah, I eat crappy, but it's the case of do, you can bring them to church, but you can't make them become a believer sort of thing, right? Like, do they really want deep down? Because whenever I would work with clients, I'd say, what's your readiness to change? What's your propensity? How hungry are you to change, to create a long lasting, sustainable change, not just temporary? You've done the temporary, you've taken off 10 to 20 pounds in the past, right? And then, of course, there's a whole health issues, and most times they have health issues that go with the excess weight, right? Yeah, and so is there anything else then, that you could speak to move before we move on about balancing the gut health, with what they, with and while taking GLP-1s? What anything else you want to comment on there?
Well, the goal is to understand what the gut needs.
Mm,
And it needs a wide range of diverse foods in order for you to have the most beneficial microbes and enough of the quality and quantity that you need for health. Now you got somebody on a drug. They can't eat very much. What
mm,
do? The answer is not to have them eating a little bit of this and a little bit of that. The answer is to give them small amounts of the same areas of food that you want them to have for that diversity. So,
okay.
in other words, you mentioned somebody may eat a pile of fiber and it may bloat them and make them look.
Mm,
No, don't give them a pile of fiber. Give them a teaspoon of fiber.
okay.
Every time it's not perfect, but every time you give those microbes that are in the gut that are starving now because there's not enough food coming in,
Mm,
what they're looking for, remember, different microbes eat different foods.
yeah.
So you make sure they have sufficient protein, carbs, and whatever, even if it's small
Yeah.
amounts.
Yeah.
So the goal is balance, not, okay, just eat this meal replacement thing because that's all you can get down because you're
What
not hungry.
about, I don't know, again, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but what about, the liquefying our foods in a smoothie versus eating the food in whole natural state. I mean, is there anything you want to comment there? Again, in the context of someone who may be taking a GLP-1 or a coach coaching someone on a GLP-1.
Well, unfortunately, as convenient as smoothies are, you're not chewing your food when you eat a smoothie,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
not sending the signaling process, especially for the gut, starts in the mouth.
Yes. And our starches begin to break down on the tongue, right?
Yeah, even
Yeah.
they now found we have protease enzymes in our saliva too. And
Oh,
the chewing
okay.
also signals the motility as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of things going on when you chew. So, my answer, like I have a smoothie bowl where I put my granola on top and mix that in so that I'm chewing. So I'm
Chewing.
chewing my smoothie,
So even
literally.
if you were to delay the swallowing of the smoothie and just swish it around your mouth, does that help more so
If you
than swallow?
chew, the
Chew.
chewing, the key thing is the saliva release. The more you chew, the more saliva is released.
Okay.
That puts enzymes and beneficial bacteria and all kinds of things into the food and also sends the signal. It's the chewing motion.
So maybe not purify your smoothie too much. Leave some chunks in or something that forces you to
Exactly.
chew.
Or
Yeah.
throw a few nuts in
Yeah.
or, something like that
Okay.
because it makes a difference.
Yeah.
It's still volume and it's still going to be such that they made, again, everybody's different on this
Hmm.
drug.
Hmm.
They may still not even be able to get a full smoothie down.
Right. But if you have a smoothie that has a combination of things that can, like you said, the variety is important for the microbes, then maybe one way to support that, right? Yeah, no, absolutely. So what about those who are on a GLP-1? I mean, I could keep you here for hours, but I don't want to, and our listeners will probably drop off. But what happens or what systems should a person have in place? Again, commenting on things we haven't already discussed, but what habits or systems should a person have in place before reducing or coming off of a GLP-1?
Okay, so the stress factor okay, first of all, I should tell everyone that if you have high cortisol, GLP-1s are less effective.
Can you say that again, please? I missed that.
If your cortisol levels are high,
Okay.
your GLP-1s will be less effective or maybe not even be effective.
So
So,
if you're really a high stress person and you're always in that fight or flight mode, your GLP-1s are not going to work as
yeah,
effectively.
not you're the ones you make, not the drug. Okay?
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
Cortisol rules the roost. Always, 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 always. And if
okay.
that is the body thinks there's a priority now because there's so much cortisol, it is not doing anything you want it to do.
Hence
Okay.
why we have weight gain, yada, 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 right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you want for before someone comes off the drug is to look again, they've come to see you for a reason.
Hmm.
If they're on the drug, they think the weight loss part's being taken care of, but they've come to you for some other reason. What is that other reason? And what do those tie to? So they're going to tie to everything ties to cortisol.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. Everything ties to the gut, and that's all there is to it. So what else could you help them balance in their diet and lifestyle that they weren't doing previously so that when they come off the drug,
Mm.
it's not the same body that they're going back to. It's not the same
Mm.
habits they're going back to. How can you help them do that and therefore not necessarily have the quick rebound? I
Right.
will say that when they do come off the drug, they won't necessarily have their appetite as it needs to be ideally because we don't know. We don't know who everybody's different.
Hmm.
So that means the person and you, the coach, have to pay attention to appetite as the drug is weaned off of,
Okay.
and then put in some strategies to boost the GLP-1 hormone naturally. So if you've taken the time to do some gut work and stress management and sleep hygiene and all that sort of stuff that can really make a huge difference, steps to good digestion, like everything that we do
Mm.
has a benefit if we do it, if the client will do it, right?
Yeah.
And doing that could give the person a different body so that when they come off the GLP-1, they're not seeing the same effect that everyone else is seeing when they come off the GLP-1 is which they immediately gain the weight back, the appetite goes back to where it was, the blood sugar does what the blood
Yeah.
sugar does.
So all that to say, and it relates to another question I had, like how might coaches help their clients address the fear of weight regain or what happens when they stop the medication? So it's not a one-trick pony, right? I mean, there's just, and that's why as a health coach, if you have background in somatic work or whatever, it does when I did EFT, when I work with clients, I pulled so many different modalities into my line of work, right? I mean, I work with people going through cancer. I used EFT for cancer. I mean, I used a whole host of things. And and that's the quality, I would suggest, of a good coach, right? Is that they know when to bring in the different tools by first, of course, doing a really good assessment with their clients, right?
Yeah, I mean, seeing a client who's on a GLP-1 drug is no different than seeing one who's not. You have to go through and see where they may be influencing how their body functions, not just with food, but
Yeah,
with all the other aspects, including the emotions. There's a big connection between GLP-1 hormones and emotions because, again, most of our negative emotions connect to the cortisol model.
right.
So,
Yeah,
and you can counter negative. And again, I'm just saying this as a nutrition person, not as a psychologist or
yeah.
an EFT person or anything like that.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
there's ways to counter negative emotions
Yeah,
doing other things that stimulate oxytocin and
yeah,
dopamine and serotonin and stuff like that that counters the cortisol. Like there's all kinds of things we can do that fall right within our scope of practice
yeah. And
that
it's amazing
that's what's
too.
in the functional emotional program, just for the record,
Yeah,
um, that
yeah,
goes with the functional hormone balance. But
yeah,
that's why I did it because I know that most of us are not in this, don't have those modalities per se,
yeah,
but can we do something physically?
yeah.
It's not going to solve any unresolved issues they may have, but it can blunt the physical effect those unresolved emotions are having on the physical body. And
Hmm.
remember, they generally come to us to help their physical body, right? They're not
Yeah.
coming to us for
As I was going through
psychology.
as I was going through your courses, I couldn't help, and I kind of knew this, but it was a good reminder of the bi-directional nature of so many things within our body. And I guess bi-directional, multi-directional, reciprocal, whatever you want to call it, right? And like I said, domino thing, we haul out one little part of it and everything comes crashing down, right? Um, yeah. And so I guess another question, and we'll wrap up here shortly, but how, if you're speaking to a coach or even someone on a GLP-1, right? What would you say to them about the importance of measuring progress beyond the scale? I mean, we've called them the non-scale victories or whatever you want to refer to them, right? The energy, digestion, mood, lab markers, behaviors, other behaviors, lifestyle behaviors, vis-a-vis or with respect to GLP-1 usage.
Well, so when looking at one of the things I like to do with clients, and I do put this into my programs for
Hmm.
protocols as well, is having them document symptoms that bother them that may or may not be connected to why they came to you. Just
Okay.
something they notice, like
Yeah.
headaches,
Yeah.
fatigue,
Yeah.
bloating, simple things, and have them do measurements throughout the course of the time that they're seeing you, maybe every 4 weeks or something, because that's our only way of measuring. The biggest one they're going to see, and what most people say, is more energy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why those food mood journals, I mean, people say, oh, they're a bit of a pain to chart, but they're so valuable for you as a person, but also for the coach, right?
Yeah. I think if they're not going to do a food mood journal throughout their time with the coach,
Mm.
it should be something that's introduced when they try coming off the drug right away so that you can catch those
Right.
changes right
Yeah.
away because you're making them be more aware of how they're physically feeling and mentally feeling, right?
Yeah.
But generally, what I do is I just have them track certain symptoms that they are well aware of as a method of seeing where they're benefiting. And if you understand what could, because you know their history,
Hmm.
what those symptoms were connected to in the first place, then you also understand if they get better, what's improving.
Well, even just helping them connect with their body. 'Cause how many of us are so disconnected? We're just too busy. We're on that treadmill of life, right? And we just are not connected, or even to realize that I had a crappy day and that's why I put my hand in the cookie jar. Like it's just become so habitual that we don't take time, right? And it's just a symptom or a factor of the life we lead for the most part, sadly, but you know, true. This is wonderful. And I'm going to let you just do a little shameless plug now in a second, of course, because I fully want you to do that. But is there anything else, any other critically important considerations or implications that you feel need to be addressed or emphasized, or something that we haven't said or touched on that, speak to the health coaches and those who are concerned about working with a client on GLP-1 or hesitation to even, work with a client in that regard, right?
Well, I think the thing is that we have to understand, and I mentioned this before, we don't know the long-term effects.
Yeah.
We know they're playing with the hormones. We know that it's not just cortisol, it's also and the the insulin, the glucagon, all that stuff. But indirectly, they're also affecting estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Okay, so we don't know what kind of a mess is being made because, again, strictly because this continuous stimulation of the GLP-1 receptors versus the pulses. So that's what we need to be paying attention to. Don't dismiss a new symptom as something that's not connected
Yeah.
until you know for sure.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, I'm just so concerned every day. There's class action lawsuits, and there's like over 3,000 individual lawsuits right now against these companies, right? That, of course, there's always, the doctors will say, well, there's always a trade-off, right? There's the risk associated with the benefits, and you have to outweigh, weigh one against the other, right? But by gracious, when I'm thinking as a health coach, it doesn't have to be that way. Now, and then people say, well, I can't afford a health coach. My gracious, I mean, my services would be a lot cheaper than the $500 or $600 a month that you'd pay out for, the medications. I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, you're injecting yourself with a needle. Mind you, they're now trying to come up with pills.
yeah, and they're not far away. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, yes, if a client came to me wanting to take them or considering or on them, I would wholeheartedly and be very, very supportive and go through everything that we talked about here today, right? And because, my first, as all of us, who and yourself included, I'm sure, we want to do right by our clients, meet them where they are. And, but I would have to, I guess, express some of my concerns, or at least help them have an informed knowledge, make informed consent, especially if they're considering taking them, right? Or considering coming off. You got to weigh both, ends of it, right? Yeah, no, that's just wonderful. And thank you. We've really given, I think, a lot. And I've heard a couple of your presentations before, but there's so much meat to it that sometimes I have to hear it a couple times, right, to let it really sink in. So thank you. Thank you for agreeing to speak to our audience today. And so whether you're a health coach, a workplace wellness professional, or maybe even a consumer of GLP-1s, we really hope that we've given you some valuable and actionable takeaways, right? Specifically, I guess it's our hope that we've underscored the imperative that coaching and supporting those on GLP-1s isn't about replacing lifestyle work with medication, but perhaps, weaving the two together in a thoughtful, client-centered way, right? And you addressed it many times, Lorene. Thank you for that. So when health coaches ground their practice in a holistic framework that includes, as we said, mindsets, habits, relationships with our food and our body, and in, of course, collaboration with medical providers, we don't want to forget them, they can really help, we can help our clients use GLP-1s as an integrated approach to optimal health and well-being, and hopefully then sustainable transformation. And is there anything, I'll give you the last word on that. Is there anything you want to add to what I just shared?
I think you covered it very well. And I just think that we have to understand the significance of this drug over other drugs, in that it's giving people something they want desperately.
Yeah.
Especially with the weight, I'm thinking of the weight loss people.
Yeah.
This is something they want desperately, and it's going to be very difficult to convince someone to not go on it. They either have to already have the belief system that the natural way is best.
Yeah.
So more than likely, you're going to be supporting them when they're on the drug,
Right.
because most people don't have that, and they need to know there's ways to protect themselves.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And if they don't, then you've heard it from us here first, right? As they say. So thank you, Lorene, for your insights, your candor, and the work that you're really doing to support coaches in their work, especially in today's complex coaching landscape. And so how might viewers connect with you?
Oh, there's so many ways.
Okay.
I have a Substack blog called from a Discerning Gut.
Tales from a Discerning Gut. I love that. Okay.
So if you just like to hear new information and, a special take on it, because I always give it a special take.
Yeah. No, you do. I've read them. They're quite good.
You might enjoy that. And then if you're interested in the upgrading programs I offer, and I
Mhm.
have a number of them, you can go to the functionalnutritiontraininghub.com and they're there.
Yeah.
And or you can email me if you're looking for something specific. We just ran a promotion on the functional hormone balance.
Yes, I actually bought into that one.
Yeah, and if you want it, it's a very, very thorough
It
program and it
is
goes,
very, and you have implementable programs there too, which is great, right? And
yes, yes, lots of
yeah,
done for you materials and things like that. So
yeah.
that's the basic ways to reach me.
Yeah, no, that's great. And thank you again. Thank you again. And thank you to our viewers, our listeners for tuning in. And, if you liked what you heard today, we have a lot more of that in our Workplace Wellness Center of Excellence YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe to be notified of upcoming episodes relating to wellness, health coaching, and particularly workplace wellness matters. And so until we meet again, stay healthy and well. And as I always like to say, keep on keeping it real. Bye for now,
Thank you,
everyone.
Lisa.
Take care.